We're gathered here for the last portion of Prabhupada remembrances on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the disappearance of His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarabinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. So, is Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj here? You're here, oh. Oh, he left after they sang another song, okay. So, I see Badrinarayan Maharaj, he looks very enthusiastic to share some more wonderful memories. Yesterday he really enlivened us.
Did he say a man who needs no introduction? Hare Krishna.
I remember Maharaj when you were Vrindavan Bab? There was Bhakti Bab and Vrindavan Bab, and there was another Bab, I can't remember.
I think it was a Bhakta Bab.
Bhakta Bab, Vrindavan Bab, and Bhakti Bab.
Tulsi Bab. They needed three different names because there were three Babs. Hare Krishna. Can any of you in the back, can you come closer? I mean, I know it'll be hard to find an open seat in this packed hall, but I'm vegetarian, I don't bite. Hello, way back there. Come join us. We're not contaminated. I may be, but Dinu Bandhu Prabhu and the other speakers are purifying. Why, thank you. I don't know exactly what the format is here. I came because I thought Guru Kripa Prabhu was going to be speaking. So I was bait and switch, and now you're stuck with me. But I was thinking that I would tell a little history from the Detroit temple. I joined in Southern California, but in the course of time I was sent different places, and I wound up in Detroit. So, there we go. I'll tell you a story right off the bat. In the darshan, how many of you speak English? Raise your hand. Okay, good. Of course, the test is I can say, the tent is on fire, and see how many run, because everybody, I'm speaking English. You know. But anyway, this mic is, anyway. Prabhupada's darshan, it's an evening. There's an Indian gentleman there in Detroit, maybe 20 devotees, a couple guests. And this man says, Swamiji, Swamiji, can you read my palm? Prabhupada says, no, Yokesh mam vahami aham. You know, we simply depend on Krishna. He maintains us, he sustains us. Prabhupada explained so many. Prabhupada said that too much dependence, he said, on this palmistry, on, what jewel stone to counterbalance Rahu. Prabhupada said, this kills the childlike innocence of bhakti. It's a great statement. It's one of Prabhupada's just, those crystalline statements. So, I've now made friends with all our palmists and astrologers out there. So, and after Prabhupada finished giving such a nice explanation, the man said, yes, Swamiji, but can you read my palm? Prabhupada said, Give me your hand. We were all very surprised. And Prabhupada was expert at theatrics. Prabhupada knew how to create drama. So Prabhupada clicked on his desk lamp, and he took the man's hand, and he began pressing to see the lines. Prabhupada was, he was studying. We were thinking, Prabhupada's reading palms. I'm going to get in queue, have Prabhupada read my hand, So after studying the man's hand for a few, then Prabhupada went, slammed the man's hand, and said, all bad. Prabhupada said, birth, death, disease, old age. I thought the man was going to have a heart attack. Prabhupada was so heavy. Prabhupada was just... And then Prabhupada, waited just the right amount of time, lit up with a big smile, and said, but if you chant the kirtan, all the lines go away. So Prabhupada made his point. So the president of the Detroit temple was a wonderful devotee who I can never repay. His name is Govardhan Prabhu. And he was, as he was named properly, he was always giving, always serving the Vaishnavas. He was a very gentle and nice person. And Prabhupada liked him very much. He was very artistic. He knew how to dress the deities very beautifully. He was a wonderful cook, nice speaker. He was just he was a little too gentle to be, management over a long time. You have to have some resilience to the inevitable slings and arrows. But he was a very good temple president, very nice person. And artistic, as I said. And he found this, we needed a new temple. And he found this mansion. It was the Fisher Mansion. It was body by Fisher. The president, he'd been the president of either General Motors or the Chrysler division, and then Cadillac Motors, body by Fisher, so many things. And Ambarish had promised Prabhupada that he would give some money. And there was another devotee who's the unsung hero of the story. Her name was Lekha Shravanti. And she was the daughter of Walter Reuther. Walter Reuther was the head of the United Auto Workers. And the Ford family, Ford Motor Company, the owners, and Walter Reuther, who was trying to unionize so the auto workers could get a fair deal, they fought huge riots, killing each other, slamming with pipes, and it was So somehow or other, these two descendants of these lines, Ambarish Prabhu, Alfred Ford, Lekha Shravanti, Lisa Reuther, they'd both pledged to give money to buy a temple. So Govardhan found this jewel. But the devotees thought, this is too fancy for us. And what would we do with such a fancy building? It's too, not for us. So, but Govardhan wanted it. He had some vision, some perception. It'd be good. So, Prabhupada came to see the building. And Prabhupada toured through it. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Detroit. He named it Devasadan Mandir because Prabhupada came in the spring, and the place was landscaped in such a way that in the spring, boom, everything blew into blossom. All the fragrant bulbs and all the fragrant roses and bushes and things, and all the big trees were yellow and pink and purple. It was a sublime, but there was maybe, quite a large compound garden. Maybe acre and a half, 2 acres even of garden. It was beautiful. So Prabhupada, when he was, first off, Prabhupada went into the building with some devotees and the owner. The owner was an unctuous, oily materialist. I forget the guy's name. And he was just a complete materialist. And Prabhupada, and he'd finally found a buyer. Because the building was it was dangerous ghetto this side. And then it got richer and richer and went into one of the best parts of Detroit on this side. So it was right on the border. So it was a little questionable whether to buy it. So first thing when Prabhupada goes into the building, there was it's a big 2-story entrance, very high entranceway, hallway, reception area. And there was a big painting, huge painting, almost life-size, of French Impressionist style of some women bathing. All the devotees, all the sannyasis. Prabhupada looks at it. Prabhupada turns to the owner and says, "Very nicely done." Prabhupada walked into another room. There was a big, because it was still furnished, there was a big bearskin polar bear rug. You know polar bears? The big white bear? They stand up on their hind legs and can run faster than a man. And they are not vegetarian. So Prabhupada walked in. It's lying there on the floor. It's, had the head, the teeth, the whole thing. Prabhupada walked over very carefully, took his cane, put it in the mouth, and picked up the head and looked at the teeth. And he put it down, turned to Jagadish. Jagadish Prabhu was the GBC. He said, "Do they eat men?" Jagadish said, "Sometimes, Prabhupada." Prabhupada put the head down and gave a wide berth. He was very careful not to get too close to the thing. It was sweet. The man was asking, I can't remember the amount. Let's say, I don't know, let's say $1 million, which in I think it was 76, we purchased the place. So you do the inflation rate. It was a lot of money. Maybe it was $750,000. It was a lot of money. Prabhupada walked into the master bedroom. Everything is gold embossed tile and just crystal and carved rosewood and unbelievable artistic work. Blue marble from Brazil. Prabhupada turned to the devotees, turned to us and said, "Each room is worth the asking price. Each room." And later on, when we went to get it insured, the insurance company told us, this is not renovation, restoration price. We can't find the Italian workers who did the carving, the mines in Brazil, the blue marble. You can't get this quality, it's gone. So we're just giving you a fixed amount. You'll have to build something else, but this is not replacement. So the Prabhupada was right that each building was worth each room was worth the asking price. So when we went into the temple room was where they used to do the ballroom dancing, and it had a sky that you could turn the lights, and it could make it night with stars and a moon, and you could turn it and make it like sunrise with nice red around the thing, It had a balcony. But the far out thing was the ballroom was here, and then there was an area where the live orchestra used to sit. And there were 3 arches, one large arch and 2 nice size but little smaller side arches. In the arches were carved peacocks, elephants, and lotus flowers. When Prabhupada saw that, Prabhupada said, Krishna has taken this rich man, engaged him in building this building, and it has simply been waiting for us to come and pick it up. So, it was great. So after the whole discussion, and Prabhupada acted, Prabhupada had his way of carrying himself because he was a transcendental aristocrat. He was a Vaikuntha man. So when Prabhupada walked, he had that aura of, it wasn't off-putting, it wasn't condescending, but there was there's a regal dignity about Srila Prabhupada. He was obviously a gentleman, a refined personality. And he walked through the building like he could just pull the money out of his bead bag and buy it. So the greedy owner of the building, he could taste the money. He could just taste that this was, he'd finally found someone to buy the building at his asking price. So after touring the building, Prabhupada sat down and outside in the sunken garden. It's nice, tiered garden, little fountains burbling, everything in blossom, the channel to the Detroit River flowing there with nice burbling sound. Sublime situation. Prabhupada sits down, devotees sit down, the owner sits down next to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, this building is perfect for our purposes. Prabhupada said, it's very aristocratic, very aristocratic. And then Prabhupada looked at the guy dead in the eyes and said, but we are not aristocrats. We are transcendental beggars. Therefore, you should give us this building. And the man almost had a heart attack. He felt he was sputtering. Your Excellence, Your Excellency. He called Prabhupada Your Excellence. He said, Your Excellence, I cannot donate the bill. Prabhupada said, that's all right. We will talk. Later on, we will talk. Prabhupada said, I just arrived. Come tomorrow night. And Prabhupada would call the guy every night. A couple times in a row, he would call the man. One time the man had obviously come from some social event. He was in a tuxedo. He was a little bit drunk. He had some woman with him. And it was like cat and mouse. Prabhupada would just preach to him and give him prasadam. Like, what is it, Hiranyakasipu playing? Lord Nrsimha playing with Hiranyakasipu. Prabhupada didn't mention price. What Prabhupada was actually doing, he was waiting for Lekha Shivanti, Lisa Ruther, and Ambarish, Alfred Ford, to work out the money. And when everything was worked out, money was in place and the guy couldn't figure Prabhupada out at all. Prabhupada was just toying with him, just preaching to him, feeding him prasadam, toying with him. Very carefully never mentioning a price. And on the third or fourth time, Govardhan would know better than me, obviously. The third or fourth time, Prabhupada called him. The money was in the bank. Prabhupada said, we will give you, I forget what it was, 750,000. The man was asking for 1 million, 1.2, so a significant reduction.
300 is what I heard.
Yeah. Prabhupada said, and I don't have the numbers quite right, but it's in this range. Prabhupada said, we will give you $750,000 cash tomorrow. No escrow, no waiting, no conditions. We give you the cash, you give us the building. The man was so shocked that here was an offer, a final number, cash tomorrow, because he evidently had some economic pressures. He needed to sell the building. He took it. He said, yes, Swamiji. The next morning, Prabhupada left for Toronto. He told, and Jagadish was going to go with it. He was the GBC for Canada. He was going to go to Toronto. Govardhan was going to fly with Prabhupada just for association. Prabhupada told Govardhan and Jagadish, I do not want to see your face until we have that building. He made them stay, sign up the final papers, make sure the money was transferred, and that the building was in our possession. So, last part of the story. After a few days, we got a call from one of the neighbors. And the neighbor said, you should come over here right away. He's stripping the building. The American real estate law, one of the basic principles, it's anything that's attached to the building you can't take. But he was taking the French mirrors, the gold embossed door handles. He was stripping, he's taking the fountains. He was stripping the building of everything he could. So Govardhan Prabhu, our fearless leader, a couple skinny little brahmacharis, we were the muscle. We went over, and the man had some workers and was loading everything into the truck. And Govardhan told him, rightly so, you can't do this. We're going to call the police. You're going to go to jail. This is grand theft, larceny. You unload that truck right now. And the man said, your Swami. Govardhan said, how can you do this? The man said, your Swami hypnotized me. Your Swami put a whammy on me. I never would have agreed to that price. He tricked me. So he kept saying, your Swami hypnotized me, he tricked me. But, he'd sold it, papers were signed, he had to put everything back. So Govardhan later on in the day called Prabhupada, told Prabhupada the story that the man was saying, your Swami hypnotized me, your Swami cheated me, your Swami. Prabhupada said, yes, I am an old Calcutta boy. So that's a little something about the Detroit Temple. Now, When first time Prabhupada came, this was at the old temple, Jefferson and Seminole. Our temple president, Govardhan Prabhu, had heard, you have to understand, those of you from India, we didn't know anything about Vedic tradition. If we could keep we didn't even have tilak. We used to remember that fuller's earth we used to use or whatever it was, if dhotis were polyester, if we could just keep our dhotis on and get tilak on, it was a major accomplishment. We used to think, this is off the track, but it is about it. I was a bhakta in Los Angeles, trying to be a bhakta. I'm still trying. And Prabhupada said, we used to think that if you thought too much, if you made too many plans, then you were trying to be the controller, and you were getting in the way of the super soul. Really, we were supposed to be on some, in play at the hand of God, let Krishna, I know not where I goeth, but I'll be where you bloweth. This kind of the mood, Had to do with being a lot of hippiedom mixed in there, If the car ran out of gas, E stands for eternal. That must be where Krishna wants us to preach today. If we forgot the books, he must want us to chant all day. If we forgot the instruments, he must want us to distribute back to Godhead all day. This was kind of, And there was a devotee named Vaidyanath. I believe he'd either graduated or come from USC or, UCLA. He was an educator, and he was a nice, he was killed in a car accident, but really nice, smart devotee. And he was our Sankirtan leader. And this at play in the hand of God, no planning, it just didn't add up to him, So Prabhupada was there in Los Angeles. He was working on the Krishna book. That's a whole other, we'll tell those stories some other day. We'll get back to Detroit in a minute. But Prabhupada was, he would give class every morning, Bhagavatam class in the LA temple. We just moved into the LA. I was coming when they were in La Cienega, but they just moved into the temple on Watsika. So, where was I? So after class, Vaidyanath Prabhu, with all these things in our mind, that thinking, planning, means she's trying to be the controller, but is that the most efficient way to use Krishna's time? So he asked Prabhupada, and quite often we would ask Prabhupada a question. We didn't quite get it out right. It was kind of in our own scrambled brains. But Prabhupada could see where we were trying to go. So he asked Prabhupada, what does surrender mean? Prabhupada said, surrender means to use your intelligence. So we're not meant to just be adrift. Krishna's given us a brain. Prabhupada liked the saying, I think it's British, God helps those who help themselves. He liked us to use our brain and, make a plan, work for Krishna. So back to Detroit. Anyway, I was going to say something else. So we'd heard that in Los Angeles, they had bathed Prabhupada's feet. And like I was saying, you can get a picture of how spaced out, and we really didn't know. There were great souls. I don't mean to Dinubandhu Prabhu, temple president of Portland, Vishnu Jan Swami. There were so many heroes. But anyway, we heard that they'd bathed Prabhupada's feet. And we thought, far out. Let's bathe Prabhupada's feet. But we weren't, Govardhan Prabhu didn't quite pick up on all the details. So Prabhupada came. I was the temple commander. I was sent out to get something to catch the bathing substances. I went to Kmart, Walmart, a discount shop, and I got a blue kiddie swimming pool, plastic swimming pool. I remember to this day it had pink ducks around the side. I thought, that'll do the job, So Prabhupada came, and we heard, you take milk and a conch shell and you bathe Prabhupada's feet. That seems easy. Some rose petals. Okay, we can do that. So Prabhupada came. He saw us come out with this pink or blue plastic swimming pool with the pink ducks on it. He saw us come up with a conch shell and the milk in a nice silver bowl. So Prabhupada could understand. Okay. Prabhupada put his feet out off the vyasa and he had his feet up like this. Govardhan put the milk in the conch shell. Hold on. And he got ready to pour the conch. Not now. He got ready to pour the milk from the conch. Prabhupada pointed at his feet and said, "Socks off, socks off." We were going to bathe Prabhupada's feet with the socks on. So we, note to the future, take the socks. That's a good idea. So Prabhupada got his feet out, right? We took the socks off. We pour the milk. It's ice cold, right out of the fridge. Prabhupada winced. Prabhupada's refined personality. He pulled his feet back. So we noted, note for the future, heat the milk. That sounds like a good idea, So Prabhupada put up with a lot. People say, in Detroit, Prabhupada sat down. He looked out over the audience. Now, Pradyumna's setting up his glasses and the Bhagavatam and the devotees getting the microphone adjusted and everything. So there's some setup time. Prabhupada was just sitting, waiting, looking, And he looked out over the audience. Now the mic by this point was turned on, but Prabhupada was sort of just speaking to himself, So Prabhupada looked out at the hippies, and there was probably, there was the 3 or 4 Radha Damodar buses there, so many devotees packed into the temple room, and there were hippies, and there were devotees, and there were pious Indian families, and college students, and local inner city street kids. It was a whole montage, mix of humankind sitting there. Prabhupada looked back, chuckled, and said to himself, "Krishna's lotus feet, they're big enough for everyone." And it's true that whoever we are, whatever, we can find some spot under Krishna's lotus feet. So then in the course of the class, is this circus going to go on for a long time? Or are we done? Okay. Prabhupada, and they're... No, it's going to go on. It's nice though, giving water to the devotees. So, in the course of his class, tell me when you're done. I understand, you're trying to serve the Vaishnava, it's nice. But it's a bit distracting. So, in the course of the class, now, to be fair to the devotees, Prabhupada came early. Just sit. Prabhupada came early. He was supposed to come in like a week, and to go look at the building and to put the bid on the... Prabhupada came like within 3 days. So everyone who's been there knows what it was like when Prabhupada was coming, Harisari or maybe Shruti Kirti told me practically every room Prabhupada walked into had just been painted. And Prabhupada's refined senses, he'd look at Shruti Kirti and say, "Fresh paint," Because it gives you a headache, fresh paint, In Detroit, Prabhupada took his garland off, nice marigold garland, and gardenia, took the whole thing apart and stuffed it in his clothing, in his kurta, in his socks. So all of his clothes smelled very nice, it was very blissful. So to be fair to the devotees, we thought we had a week. All of a sudden, all we had was 3 days. So practically no one had slept. Maybe some naps here and there, a few minutes, Everybody was literally bone tired. And the Radha Damodar devotees, they were told, you got to do your quota. You got to do $100 a day or you can't come. So everybody's working hard. So when the first day Prabhupada spoke, the whole audience, practically speaking, fell asleep. Sannyasis, temple presidents, brahmacharis. It was like Brahma's magic wand. I'm not just asleep, nodding out. I'm talking out cold. Now, the Chaitanya Charitamrita had just come out. So instead of Bhagavatam class, Prabhupada was reading from the CC. And I've got to find the verse. I just thought of it today, so I'll have to look. But Prabhupada was making the point about causeless mercy. Causeless mercy means it has no cause. It descends like rain from heaven, Prabhupada said, I remember Prabhupada's example. Prabhupada says, it's like if you're walking along the road and you find some gold. Just, you find it there. No one's there, it's just fun. Or Prabhupada said someone walks up to you and says, take, 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 and gives you crores of rupees, you know? No cause. And Prabhupada said, in the same way, this movement is going on by the mercy of Krishna alone. And then he sat back, looked over his glasses at all the devotees asleep, chuckled to himself, and in a resigned, affectionate, grandfatherly way said, that is a fact. That this movement is going on by because there was his disciple. Later on in his room, Prabhupada said, well, there was a whole conversation. Before I forget the point, Prabhupada said, just like Lord Ram, because we were feeling very proud. I was a young temple president, so many things. Prabhupada said, just like Lord Ram conquered Lanka with monkey soldiers, I'm spreading this movement with monkey disciples. That's pretty heavy, you know, it's pretty far out, you know. Then Prabhupada said, actually, I've given you everything. He said, I've created the structure. He said, all you have to do is decorate it. Then Prabhupada said, actually, I've given you the decorations. Just go and hang them. Prabhupada said, Prabhupada said the Pandavas, this is Prabhupada's exact words, the Pandavas were being hunted in the forest like animals. You know, when they were, in banishment, hiding in the forest. Because if they were discovered, then they had to go in for another 14 years or whatever it was. Prabhupada said they were being hunted in the forest practically like animals. And they said, but within 18 days, Yudhishthira Maharaj became emperor of the whole world. From being practically nothing, within 18 days, Prabhupada said Krishna can give you the whole world. He said, why 18 days? 18 hours. And then Prabhupada said, but what will you do with it? Simply sleep. I mean, Prabhupada was heavy. He could be, that's when he said monkey disciples, and he let us have it, you know. One devotee, I don't want to mention his name, he's a nice devotee. If you were a devotee 3 years, I mean, you were a senior personality, you know. And maybe Jayananda, was anybody over 30?
Jayananda.
Huh?
Jayananda was, I think.
Maybe Jayananda was over 30, but and we took vows. I mean, you have to understand in the West, I mean, this is like breathing for us to break these principles. So this devotee started to say to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I took these vows, I was a young man, I was single. Now it's so many years later, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years later. It's not so easy. I didn't know how hard it would be. He was starting to make the case that how it's difficult, especially for householders, to follow the principles. Prabhupada cut him right off, slammed his hand down on his desk, and then said, why did you promise? Prabhupada said, then why did you promise? Twice. He said, only an animal cannot keep his promise. Into the conversation, I mean, Prabhupada was very tolerant, very merciful. Prabhupada gave the example of a child. If the child is healthy, when a child is learning to walk, what will happen? This is Prabhupada's example. I was there, I heard him give it. A child gets up, little baby, tries to walk, what happens? Vaishnavis, what happens? He falls down. Then what happens? He gets up again. He walks a little further. Then what happens? Falls down again. What Prabhupada said, Prabhupada liked to do the Socratic method of asking questions. Prabhupada said, what is the one thing that will keep this child from walking? Assuming the child is healthy, walking, falling down, getting up, falling down. What is the one thing that will keep that child from learning how to walk? Anyone know? If he doesn't get up. If he stays down, then that's it. I said assuming he's healthy, so paralyzed doesn't work. Assuming he's healthy. As long as you get back up, whatever happens in life. There's a poster, we're editorializing a bit here, but I think I'm supposed to go for half an hour or something, so I'll keep going. 40 minutes, whatever they told me. So there's a poster in India from the Indian Travel Bureau. And it's a beautiful picture of the Taj Mahal, nice border around it, and it has a caption across the top. It says, India, land of surprise. And anyone who knows India says, you got that one right, land of surprise. So life, it's a land of surprise. So many things happen that we don't expect. Well, whatever may happen, it's not an excuse, but things happen. As long as you get up and can try again, eventually we'll be able to do it properly. So I don't want to scare anybody or, ladle anybody with guilt. That's not the intention here. It's not a sannyasi railing against the householders. But it is, we have to see the full picture. Prabhupada said it's one of those great sutras. I have used this thing, in my trying to work my own brain. Prabhupada said a symptom of intelligence is the ability to balance opposing points within the mind. I'm going to say it again. A symptom of intelligence is the ability to balance opposing points within the mind, to understand this side of the argument. Just like we say Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. We understand the impersonal side, we understand the personal side, and we understand the balance. We're not fundamentalist Christians, we're not impersonalist Sankaracharya followers, but we're Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. That takes intelligence. So I'm telling one side and I'm telling the other side, and the synthesis is the truth, or the proper course, understanding. So back to Detroit. There was Prabhupada had seen, Prabhupada was Gopal Bhatta Prabhu uses the term, a transcendental entrepreneur. Prabhupada was always looking for an opportunity, how to expand for Krishna. He would always, there was a reasonable door, Prabhupada would, why not? Prabhupada would try it. So there was a school across the street from the new Detroit temple, Devasiddhan Mandir. And it was boarded up. It was a Catholic school, and the neighborhood had run down, so people had left, and they weren't using it. And we needed a school. So Prabhupada had seen the building. The Leka Shravanti, Lisa Ruther, because her family had been very influential in Detroit, she asked the Monsignor, not the bishop, but one of the senior leaders in the Catholic Church in Detroit to meet Srila Prabhupada. This man had obviously come only because out of family obligation. He'd known the father, known the daughter since she was a little girl. She's asking him to come repeatedly, all right. But he did not want to come, and he was not respectful. First thing he asked Prabhupada, he said, what can you do for us? You've come from India, you're coming here. What do you have to offer? He literally said to Prabhupada, you should just go back to India. India's a mess. Not literally, but that was the principle. India's a mess. He said to Prabhupada, that standard setup. Look at the death rate in India. Anyone know what Prabhupada hit him with? Death rate is the same everywhere, 100%, which kind of shocked the guy. Then the man said, but the poverty rate is so high in India. Look at the poverty. Prabhupada hit him. Maybe Scottish Churches College, I don't know where he got it, and this doesn't mean go memorize the Bible. But Prabhupada pulled out of the blue, he said, I forget which one. He says, in your Bible it says, he said, your own Jesus says, that's what Prabhupada said. Your own Jesus says, the poor will always be with us. Which is some verse in the Bible. And because they are arguing to Jesus, what are you doing for the poor, this and that, And he says, your kingdom is a kingdom of heaven, not of this earth, So even the pauper is proud of his penny, so many things. So Prabhupada quoted to the guy, the priest, from his own Shastra, from his own Acharya, that, poverty is not the whole business is to be self-realization. Get out of this material world. You cannot wash coal and make it white. It is the nature of this place. I mean, we have our food for life, we do so many things, but that's not the essence of the thing. You cannot make this world a great place. So Prabhupada hit him with his own acharya, which kind of shocked the guy. Meanwhile, simultaneously, Prabhupada is plying the man with Mahaprasadam. Prabhupada's giving him some samosas. Take. You can do me a favor, our young man from Ukraine. I want to tell the story, Madhuvisa's story, because he's not with us anymore, at least physically, about Prabhupada and the gulab jamun. So when I finish this Detroit and the priest, you remind me, okay? Maybe we'll end there. So, meanwhile, Prabhupada's giving the man samosa, nice burfi, jalebi. Prabhupada's plying him, filling him full of prasadam. Prabhupada's giving him his garland, but the guy still got his guard up. He says to Prabhupada, why have you come here? Death rate is so high. Prabhupada knocked that pillar out of his support. Well, what are you doing about the poor? What about the poor suffering of this world? Prabhupada knocked that out of his support. Then the man said, all right. Oh, Prabhupada asked him, the first thing Prabhupada asked him when he saw him was that, you have an empty building, can you give it to us? Which completely surprised, nobody does that, Prabhupada said, I cannot give you that building. Why are you asking? So, anyway, Prabhupada's filling the guy full of prasadam, knocking out the pillars of his different arguments. Then the man says, well, more or less we have it covered here. We're preaching love of God. You're preaching love of God. You take care of India. We'll take care of America. Just go back. What are you doing that's different? We're doing the same thing. Why have you come here? I mean, the guy was pretty heavy, frankly. Prabhupada said, what is the difference? The man asked. Prabhupada said, Prabhupada was just fantastic. Prabhupada, okay, that's the angle's not working. I'm going to try another angle. Prabhupada told him, do you agree that man is suffering? Humankind is suffering. Any honest person agrees. The man said, yes, we're suffering. Prabhupada said, all right. Why are we suffering? The man said, because of separation from God. Prabhupada said, all right, yes. And what is separating us from God? The man said, sin. Prabhupada slammed his hand on the desk and said, that is my point. That is the difference. We are teaching how to live a sinless life. Prabhupada got him. Prabhupada gave the example. You go to the church and you sin, and then you go on Friday, you have confession, so you've got a clean slate for Saturday, Sunday. You go right back out sinning. It's like bathing an elephant. What is the use? We are teaching. The difference is, we are teaching how to, as Jesus says, in the world, but not of the world. We are teaching how to do that. We're teaching how to live a sinless life. And the guy got it. His arguments had been defeated. And Prabhupada had explained to him the difference. And to the credit of the man, to his credit, he got it. You could see literally the man transforming as Prabhupada talked to him. So he opened up. I've saw this many times in Chicago when Prabhupada met the editor of Playboy magazine. That's a far out story. People would open up. They would open their heart. So they just, the guy he busted up like a watermelon. He opened up and said, we have no young people. All we have is old ladies. And, you have so many young people. What is your secret? Prabhupada said to him, I understand you have a ceremony. You offer one dry wafer. Prabhupada's talking about communion. I don't know if anyone's Catholic or Episcopalian or whatever. They take communion. It's supposed to be the blood and body of Christ. It's like prasadam, actually. Transmographer, whatever they call it. There's a name for it. It transfers material to spiritual. So you take a cracker, and you take some grape juice or wine, it becomes the blood and body of Christ that, whatever, you become infused with spiritual purification. So, but it's a dry little cracker. So Prabhupada said, I don't know where he got it, Prabhupada said, I understand. The man asked, you have so many young people, you're full of life, we just have old ladies, what is your secret? Remember that Prabhupada had been plying him with Mahaprasadam. Prabhupada said, I understand you have a ceremony, regular ceremony, and you offer one dry wafer, Prabhupada said. One dry cracker. Prabhupada said, you introduce these Bengali sweets, you'll have full attendance. Which I thought was, and it's true, I would have gone to communion if I could get get a confet, you get a gulab jamun or a jalebi or something, And also I was thinking metaphorically, they're like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, all the, like a dry oil cake, all the oil squeezed out. Their process is so dry, and Krishna consciousness is luscious, juicy, full of beautiful deities and katha and so many things. So when Prabhupada told him that, the guy just busted up. That was it. And then when the man left, it was so sweet. Prabhupada, perfect gentleman, of course. Prabhupada had us pack up a little box of prasadam, and he had Prabhupada's garland on. He had Bhagavad-Gita under his arm. And he turned to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, I feel like he bowed, half bow, and said, I feel like I've become one of your disciples. It was so sweet, And then when he left, Prabhupada said, what is it? Vachovegam, Krodasavegam, Madasavegam, Krodavegam, like that. Prabhupada quoted from Upadeshamrita, that one who's able to, Prabhupada is a Goswami, one who controlled his senses is a Goswami and can make disciples all over the world. So Prabhupada is a real Goswami, had converted this man. It was really wonderful to see. It was sweet. The Madhuvisa story, Madhuvisa Prabhu told me this. This was in Australia, I don't know, Sydney, Melbourne, I don't know where. And, Prabhupada, we should do things nicely. We have the most important message in the world. Frankly, the only important message in the world. And therefore, we should have the best delivery system. It should be presented in the best way. Because it's the most important message. But whatever the situation, Prabhupada would use whatever was there. This man came. He was the High Commissioner to the United Nations for Health and Welfare, or whatever it was. He was some diplomatic, fancy guy. And he came with his London Savile Row, hand-tailored suit and his French cuffs, and he was the real dandy, right? He just couldn't get what, overpopulation, this or that. He just could, he's just one of those guys who just didn't get it, it happens. So he was getting ready to go, and Prabhupada said, have you had any prasadam? The man hadn't had any. So Prabhupada told wait, and the devotees bring some prasadam. And the man was in a hurry to go, so the devotees came with a bowl of these big gulab jamuns. No plate, no cup, no spoon, and the man was going to go. Prabhupada said, give me your hand. Man didn't know what was going on. He put his hand out. Prabhupada put this big gulab jamun in his hand. And the juice is going down his fingers, juice is going down on his French cuffs, up his sleeve, He doesn't know, what is this? What's going on? Prabhupada said, take. And with Prabhupada's gusto, enthusiasm, the man bit into it. It was a big gulab jamun, goosh, all over his silk tie, the devotees are thinking, we'll never see this guy again. He's gone, we'll never see him. Prabhupada didn't back up an inch. Prabhupada said, whole thing. The guy stuffs his whole gulab jamun. He's got juice all over him, He swallows the thing. Turns to Prabhupada and says, I think I'll have another. So, something about Prabhupada's presence, Because we mentioned it. And the other speakers here, what should I do? Someone else is here? Okay, oh yeah. So I'll wrap up. So,
I have a list.
There's so many things I could say. But I'll tell the story about Prabhupada meeting. The devotee's name was Pundarik Aksham, or Pundarik. And he was in Chicago, and his father was the editor for Playboy magazine. Now it's pornography, basically. But to perfume it, they have one article by some intelligentsia or important figure in the American, Prabhupada's example. You can take a dead rat, put perfume on it, it's still a dead rat. So this was a pornography, and but it was big. It had that was the point. It had 6 million readers. And it had an article, I think it came out monthly, it had an article that was someone of, considered a glitterati in the social or political world, educational, academic world. And the boy had convinced his father, the editor of Playboy magazine, to have Prabhupada as the interviewee, the article of the month. And the devotees they didn't tell Prabhupada what kind of magazine it was. They told, that's the key issue. They told Prabhupada it has 6 million readers. And it has so many important people in it. And it was the year of the Guru on the cover of Life magazine, and, TM with the Beatles. So they agreed to interview Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't miss a trick. Prabhupada was a transcendental Sherlock Holmes. If you tried to hide something from Prabhupada, he just would get on the trail. I'd seen this a number of times. I could tell but we don't have time. But this just gives you an example. So the man came, Chicago, I think that was the headquarters at the time, came to meet Srila Prabhupada, and he was introduced, and they said, Prabhupada, this is, the editor of this magazine, Playboy magazine, and it has 6 million readers. Prabhupada said, what kind of magazine is it? They said, oh, it's an entertainment magazine. Hoping, okay, let's just stop there, And Prabhupada, I'm not a mind reader, far from it, but you could sense that Prabhupada, Prabhupada could say so much with his face that, okay, something's not adding up here. Prabhupada asked, what kind of entertainment? They said, photographs. Prabhupada, by this time, the temple president was starting to sweat. He's the one who organized the thing. Prabhupada said, what kind of photographs? They said, photographs of women. Prabhupada said, what kind of photographs of women? They said, women undressed. Prabhupada was shocked. Prabhupada said, we cannot be in such a magazine. Prabhupada was like, And then there's the key thing. Prabhupada turned to the man. Prabhupada said, you seem like a gentleman. You seem well educated. How is it that you're publishing such a degraded magazine? And the guy just opened up. He just split up. He said, I know, I graduated from Harvard. I have a degree in journalism from the University of Chicago. I'm looking for another job. It was true confessions. Prabhupada just, And then later on, he actually quit, and he became the editor for the New York Times Sunday magazine. He got a good job, And he did it because Prabhupada told him, you should not be in this magazine. So those are a few. I know I'm supposed to get off the stage. They don't have a bell to ring. One more, Tamal Krishna, because I was thinking about gulab jamans. Tamal Krishna Goswami personally told me this one. This I promise. You can shut the mic off after this. At the old LA temple, La Cienega, Prabhupada would come and sit with the devotees. Some of the devotees, he would give the Sunday talk. That's why I first saw Prabhupada sitting on the... Prabhupada said, a male ghost haunts a woman, and a woman ghost haunts a male. You do not know these things? I was thinking, ghost? I was studying science. What? I was like... Anyway, so after the talk, they would serve out the feast, and Prabhupada would sit in a side room. There was a small side room, and he'd sit with visiting presidents and, Tamal Krishna Goswami, Dayananda, Karandar, senior devotees would sit there. So, and Prabhupada would have a nice big plate of prasadam. He'd take a little bit, take off his plate and put it onto distribute it. Maha prasadam. So he took a bite of a gulab jamun, big gulab jamun. And then the remainder, he put on Tamal Krishna Goswami's plate. Tamal told me, he was a brahmachari in those days. Went through the first plate at the speed of the mind. Very carefully transferred his Maha Prasadam, gulab jamun, to the next plate. Finished that plate off with the speed of the wind. carefully savoring it. Prabhupada was sitting here on a little raised seat. Tamal was here on the floor. Next to him was a devotee named Jai Gopal. Jai Gopal was an infamous prasadam thief. You know Jai Gopal?
I know
Yeah, he was
Jai
a transcendental, quite a character actually.
Yeah.
So Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me, he was looking at Prabhupada's ear, and he was thinking how Prabhupada's ear was just like Lord Buddha, nice, long, beautiful shape, auspicious. And then he was thinking how Prabhupada's ear was like a transcendental radar dish, perfectly tuned for catching Shabda Brahman. So he was meditating on Prabhupada's ear. And while he was looking this way, looking at Prabhupada's ear, Jai Gopal reached over, grabbed his gulab jamun, Mahaprasad, and ate it. Tamal grabbed him by his shirt and was going to whack him. He's a young man, brahmachari. Tamal Krishna Maharaj said he had the wherewithal that at least he asked Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, can I hit him? Can I hit him? Prabhupada said, what did he do? He said, Prabhupada, he stole my gulab jamun. Prabhupada said, Vaikuntha qualifications. Pranalin. Prabhupada said there's two types of devotees. He said there's devotees who distribute prasadam, and there's devotees who steal prasadam. And then Prabhupada said, and they are both transcendental. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.